Thanks for joining us for our second opening ceremony of the day, but probably first to you. Yeah, go ahead and say in the chat where you're from. It's really cool to see just how wide a span in the world we are gathering here right now. So I'm Ella. I am the Executive Director of Neuromatch Academy, and I have been for the last couple of years, but I've been involved since 2020 in sort of all aspects of Neuromatch. In my other job, I am in charge of education for a Neuro AI Institute at Harvard. So yeah, we're really excited to just come together and celebrate the start of the courses. So please be active in the chat to meet each other. We've got some polls up you should answer. And there's also the ability to ask a question. So you can ask questions throughout and we'll have people answer in text, but we'll also hopefully have some time at the end to tackle some of the questions live with our panelists. So yeah, ask questions at any point. The goal of this opening ceremony is just like to celebrate that our courses are starting. And it's also so that you, the students, get to meet some of the people who have been working really hard behind the scenes. And we get to see you, at least in the chat. So we're going to go through a little bit of just a kind of intro first. So I'll just get going with these slides. So yeah, we are running 3 courses this year. So you are hopefully in one of these 3 courses. We have a computational neuroscience course that has been sort of our first course we developed in 2020. We added a deep learning course in 2021. And new this year, we have a computational tools for climate science course, which is with our sister organization, CLIMATEMATCH Academy. It's been really exciting to sort of experience branching out to a whole new area that the original creators of Neuromatch Academy have very little experience with. So it's been really cool to see that and work with ClimateMatch on that. So yeah, so I'm going to let Nick Halper, who is the CEO of Neuromatch, introduce himself, and maybe you can tackle this slide, Nick.
Yeah, thanks, Ella. So this slide, as Ella kind of mentioned, the purpose of these opening ceremonies is to get to meet each other, and that includes getting to meet each other in the context of what we're trying to do here and what we're accomplishing. My hope is that going through these opening ceremonies will give you a sort of like taste and flavor of what it feels like to be a part of Neuromatch and see kind of what it is that we focus on, so that you can take that into your actual lessons and take that into the classrooms that you take part in, so that you can have the best experience possible. So what is Neuromatch about? I'm not going to go through these in order, actually, kind of random order on this page. A huge component of what we do is attempt to bring global inclusion and accessibility to the sciences that we teach and mentor it within. So the goal there and the focus is really on collaboration, working well with each other across borders, bringing lots of people and ideas in, and bringing that into how you learn, how you end up working afterwards, hopefully, so that you can kind of see the benefits of working together. So Ella will go a little bit more into how we construct our courses later, but I want to give a little preview of it right now because I think it helps kind of share what our ethos is or idea is behind these courses. And that is that when we're constructing these, we're really bringing in tons of experts and tons of people from their specific areas to build these things together so that everybody's really contributing their very best thing so that we all get to benefit from it and use it. And so as you're going through this course, I think keeping that idea of collaboration in mind is really important. And to kind of get to the very last pieces here, real learning and mentorship and networking, I hope that the way that you experience these courses is more than just something like reading a textbook or learning some facts that you can learn online, but really taking part in the kind of relationship building and conversational aspect of learning. Really learning how and why things work the way that they do, why you make the choices that you do as you learn these techniques is a really important part of this. And so I really encourage you to sort of lean on your pod mates, lean on your teaching assistant and others that you encounter to make sure that you achieve that goal of really learning why and what you're doing. And then finally, mentorship and networking. There will be tons of opportunities for these throughout the whole course. You'll see some of them that are very explicit. So for example, you might have a mentor that joins your pod or your project time to help provide you career advice or mentorship on the research project that you're doing. To more maybe subtle forms of mentorship, getting to learn from your fellow students, getting to interact with your teaching assistant, or even taking part in social events where you get to talk to other people from around the world. There's always an opportunity to learn from everybody, and I hope that you really take advantage of those in this, because I think they're central to the experience.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, I totally agree. There's so much for you to take advantage of, and we'll hear later in the ceremony from some students in the past about how their advice or how you can do that. So yeah, at the core of our mission is really making education accessible to everyone in the world. So to do that, to make things accessible, we need to take into account the huge diversity of people that we have involved in everything we do. And that's, we mean diversity in a huge, broad way. We have people from obviously all over the world, I think over 100 countries this year. We have people, of every gender, ethnicity, race, probably not every age. We don't allow people under 18, but that's the one way we're not diverse. But we just have this huge community of people all coming from different perspectives and also different scientific perspectives. And one of the things that makes this so exciting for us is exactly that, is bringing different people together and kind of creating greater than the sum of our parts as a community. So we have Gunnar here, who is one of the, basically one of the founders of Neuromatch Academy, right? Gunnar, you've been here from day one. So maybe you can talk a little about that and also, Neuromatch as a community.
Oh boy, you're putting me on the spot here. Hello, everyone. This is so exciting. I can only imagine how, must be feeling looking forward to the next 2-3 weeks. Hopefully you'll get a really enjoyable experience out of this. And I mentioned I was here from the beginning. We're one of the co-founders, essentially, of Neuromatch Academy. One of the things that makes these kind of summer schools in general unique is not just that you get to meet all kinds of people from around the world with different lived experience. And as Ella said, I would really encourage you to take advantage of that. What's also unique is every one of you comes in with a very different background, right? You all have different educational paths. Some of you are more advanced in certain aspects than others. You all have strength and you all have things to learn. And in particular, you have all things to learn from one another, as Ella mentioned. Now, that also means that every single one of you will get something different out of the academies. And the important thing is not that you all end up at the same level. The important thing is the increment in learning. If you come in and you have never heard of this before, hopefully you'll come out enlightened with a certain amount of maybe somewhat superficial of the different aspects that we teach. If you're already very advanced, well, then hopefully we can elevate you one step further and you come out enriched, maybe a little bit more expert. So keep that in mind in your learning experience. This is absolutely expected. If you don't get every single day, every single tutorial, every single exercise, every single talk, that's fine. We're essentially putting a whole dump of information on you. And you will very likely, even if you're an expert, have to come back later on and revisit certain aspects. So I think this is really critical for making your experience enjoyable. Be in the moment, focus on learning in the moment. Don't think, oh my God, I still have 3 more tutorials to go, 3 more exercises to do this, we're running out of time. It doesn't matter, as long as you keep progressing. I've talked enough, thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, that's great advice. I echo everything that you just said. Yeah, so Neuromatch is really a community. So we want everyone to take part. And And, one of the main ways we do that is that we make you learn with other people. If you haven't already, you should watch the orientation video, at least for the Company and Deep Learning classes. And I go into some of the research that shows why you should learn with other people. So we really make you learn with other people, both because it's good for learning, but also because that's the point of Neuromatch, is to come together and be a community. So please don't be scared to speak up in pods. You should be interactive. You should be asking questions if you have them. No one's going to judge you. Everyone's here to learn. If you have the question, probably someone else does too. So please, take full advantage of your time here, of your teaching assistants. Speak up. Similarly, you should speak up outside of that. So we have community events. We'll have Kevin talk later about some of the events you can attend. You should come participate. And we also have this big Discord community that you should join if you haven't already, and where we really encourage you to take advantage of that space as well. All right, so next we'll talk a little bit about who is Neuromatch Academy and ClimateMatch Academy. And it's just so many people is the takeaway. We have our leadership, so our board members, our executive committee. We have our teaching assistants, our mentors, our instructors, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of volunteers. And, Neuromatch Academy is really you. So maybe this is not working.
You can fill in the blank there.
Yeah.
Just imagine your face in this slot.
Take a photo of yourself and put it there. We really have just some amazing students, and our students are what makes Neuromatch Academy work. Oh, there we go. I just was a little slow. So you can see some of the happy faces of prior students in their Zoom pods. And it's really, we wouldn't exist if not for the enthusiasm of our students from day one, year one. So, a lot of our volunteers are prior students, and so we really use the enthusiasm of students to drive us. So Nick, do you want to talk about Neuromatch staff?
I think Nick just dropped out.
Nick had to go. All right, Nick had to leave. Okay, so while there's Nick,
He's back.
I'm sorry, I'm back.
These are people who are core staff members at Neuromatch.
Did we lose Ella? Yes, we lost Ella for a second. There's only enough room in this room for Ella or I. Apparently can't both be in here.
So maybe we can just give some numbers here, because Ella mentioned there's lots of people that make this happen. Over the years, I think we've had almost, or maybe even more now, than 1,000 volunteers working on the different academies. And all kinds of aspects. The way that you get to see the materials, it's not just, a professor and their team, or maybe a couple professors that have worked on those materials. It is literally a whole team that has created the materials, tested the materials, improved the materials, made sure that all the different teachings actually work. So in other words, we have actually had student groups test the materials, give us extensive feedback. We had to make sure that all the videos work correctly, that the audio comes across. There's, in certain instances, closed captioning and even translation of that. These are all huge teams behind that have made that happen. And so we're extremely grateful for all the volunteers and organizers and contributors in general that have made that happen. And of course, as Ella mentioned, the number one thing that makes Neuromatch Academy and ClimateMatch Academy work is you, of course, as students, but also, and most importantly, our TAs. Our TAs are essentially the interface between us organizers and you, the students. And as such, I would say Neuromatch Academy is essentially our TAs. And we're extremely grateful that they're here to share their knowledge and their expertise with you.
Thanks, Gunnar. As Ella said, there's many different groups that put this on, and so we're going to go over some of the different teams, I guess, that make up Neuromatch. The first one that I'll give you an overview of is the staff. These are people that work at Neuromatch. I'm one of them. Courtney, who you can't see here, is in the background and making sure this whole show runs well. She's bringing people on and off camera and helping to answer questions and polls. So she's in the background here. Constantine has been responsible for a lot of the tech infrastructure that you see, working alongside a lot of the volunteer staff who help make Discord and the portal and making your notebooks run and getting production and stuff set up, which we'll cover later. And then we have Viviana, who came to our earlier opening ceremony, and Servi, who both help in all sorts of back-end things, whether that be data analysis or answering support tickets and inquiries that you have in Discord or over email. They're around for a lot. Within each sort of organization, Neuromatch, so Neuromatch and the deep learning courses are put in by the Neuromatch Executive Committee, and then the CLIMATEMATCH one, which we'll talk about next. We have all sorts of executive team members that basically lead departments that serve a bunch of different functions in making the course possible. And so we have a few of these people actually
Nick.
right now. So I'll let them introduce themselves, or Ella introduce them when she's back, since I can't see this.
All right, can you all hear me? All right,
yes.
Nick, I think your mic is a little buggy. So we had a little trouble hearing you there. If you want to try. So we have a couple members of our volunteer executive committee for Neuromatch here. So we also have a lot of people who couldn't make it right now, but because they're in different time zones, because we've got a truly global executive committee. So let's start with Antoine. Do you want to tell a little about your department and yourself?
Yeah, hello everyone, super happy to be here. I'm Antoine. In Neuromatch, I'm working in the operation department. So we have multiple goals. The main goal, I would say, is playing with matching and trying to make it work at all the different levels. So as a student, you're probably in a pod with other students and a specific TA. So we worked in the background based on all the application, new preferences, and we try to put it all together so that each and every one of you end up having the best experience for the Neuromatch by working with people with similar dataset interests, similar time zone, similar background as well. And we also, so that's for the tutorial part, but we also play with the matching for the project. So we match you with project TA that will help you specifically work on the project data set. And we also finally work with the mentors, so the people from all over the world that will help you even more with the project. Also, the second facet is working with all about the survey. So you will see that during the course, you will have a lot of stuff to fill in, and we will be looking at these results to make it for the next years even better. Yeah, that's done. Also, I'm also doing stuff outside of NMA. So in real life, we can call it this way. I'm a postdoc in computational neuroscience at MIT.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so all your pods fit are all together. That was Antoine getting you all into the best possible pod with taking into account a lot of factors. So it's a really impressive job. Kevin, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name's Kevin Rush. Outside of Neuromatch, I'm a bioinformatician at the Yemeni lab at UMass Chan, and I also work as part of a rigor initiative in the coding lab at UPenn. At Neuromatch, I am the chair of student experience. So I help put together the Discord. I work very closely with Constantine to try and get the bot to behave appropriately. I put together a lot of the live events, so like the film festival, the chess tournament, any live AMAs and such that you guys will be seeing were put together by me. And yeah, basically a lot of the stuff that students do outside of the course or during the course, but outside of the Zooms and the actual classes. That's essentially what I'm in charge of. So yeah, hey.
Thank you. Yeah, Kevin is a Discord wizard, so all of the cool features of Discord come from a team, but Kevin really led that team. So hopefully you'll get to take advantage of some of those. So yeah, we have a lot of other people who have helped make this happen. So Marius and Scott are leading projects. So for the Comp Neuro and Deep Learning courses, Burek is the instructions lead, so he updated our TA training this year. If any TAs are in the crowd, you hopefully benefited from that. He did a great job. Rian is our registrar, because we're more officially university sounding now. So he helps with student admissions and, you know, onboarding students and figuring out attendance certificates and so on. Shannon is on curriculum. She did a lot of really cool updates for the deep learning course this year. Her background is in deep learning NLP, so that's great. We have Spiros on production. He makes all our materials look beautiful. I should say, when I say he does, like all of these people are leading huge teams of volunteers. It's not just these people on the screen who have made Neuromatch happen. His department makes our materials beautiful. And Alberto is in charge of communication. So if you've seen a tweet, Alberto leads the team who manages that. All right, so I think we're going to bring on some people from ClimateMatch Executive. So we'll see Antoine and Kevin later, but for now, we'll say goodbye to them. So ClimateMatch is putting on the computational tools for climate science course. So they are a sister organization. So a lot of our departments are very similar, but these people lead the departments for ClimateMatch specifically. So hopefully we'll get a couple of them on. I'll start with Abigail because I don't think she can join today. Abigail is the executive director of ClimateMatch. She really, I think, is the reason that ClimateMatch exists. She wanted to create a course in NMA style on climate science. So that's been really cool to see that idea grow into all of this. So we have Douglas joining us. So Douglas, yeah, want to tell us a bit about yourself and your department at ClimateMatch?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, great.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Stroud. My day job is a research scientist at North Carolina Institute for Climate Studies, and I'm mostly excited about ClimateMatch Academy as the department co-chair with Rocio for professional development. We really want to create the experience for all the students joining the class this year as our inaugural cohort. I think we have about 500 students, so we're really excited, and all the things that our volunteers and other department chairs put into for this first cohort. And for the professional development, we have multiple activities, including career panels and career profiles and mentoring meetings that's jointly working with project teams. I see Natalie on the screen as well. I'm gonna let Natalie talk more about some of the projects and the impact talks. So we really hope that you can get the experience that has been described by the Neuromatch Academy earlier, and that we hope you can take skills and use those skills in after the 2 weeks of the course at this month.
Hi, maybe I'll just keep going. I'm Natalie. I'm actually a postdoc in neuroscience, and that's how I found out about ClimateMatch last summer. And since then, I've worked with Zane Mitrovica, who I think is also on the call, to put together our research project. So we worked with 7 fantastic teams from all around the world to put together research projects that our students are going to be working on for the whole 2 weeks of the course. we also worked on mentor meetings, which are being scheduled as we speak. So everybody is going to be able to talk to 2 different career mentors. And alongside that, we our theme as ClimateMatch Academy is from data to action. So we have a pretty strong component wanting to take what we learn about climate in the course to people's lives directly. So we're also organizing the impact talks that Douglas was talking about, where people talk about climate justice, equity and climate science, science communication and open science, to try and have the greatest impact, not only within the course, but also on the world around us.
Great, thank you. So maybe Jenna, I know maybe you can speak. I know your camera's not working. But...
That's okay. Can you all hear me? Okay, great. Well, it's wonderful to be here. My name is Jenna Pearson, and I am one of the curriculum specialists, and our job is really just to get to take a last look at all of the materials that we'll be presenting to you in just a short time frame. And so just really getting everything together and making sure it's cohesive. And we hope that you really just have a wonderful experience, and we hope you enjoy everything we put together for you. Thank you.
All right, and then Avisha, want to go next?
Hey everyone. So nice meeting you all. I'm Avisha, and I was the communications and outreach team lead at ClimateMatch. So our job was basically making ClimateMatch known and its online presence and bringing as many people as we can joining our community. And I've been associated with Neuromatch since 2020. I was a student, then became a TA. So I've had a great experience so far, and that was a personal motivation to spread the word more about this great community. So I hope you all have a blast and happy learning.
Thank you. And Ohad, want to go next?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Ohad. I'm a climate scientist, basically, or we call it environmental engineering, whatever you want. I'm currently curriculum specialist. I've revised, rewritten, redid, rerun anything on the notebooks for ClimateMatch to make sure they're working and everything is in top shape for you all. I hope they are. Let me know next week. If they're not, we'll try to get everything fixed if something's broken. I hope you enjoy it. There's some very, very interesting tutorials in store for you, which many of these wonderful people made. And you can always find me on Discord if you have any specific questions, both on climate or Python or just whatever.
Great, thank you. All right, so I think maybe we've introduced everyone who's with us from ClimateMatch. You can see it's a big team, and their executive committee is actually bigger. That's, of course, because they're building something totally from scratch this year. So they've had to put a lot of work in to build a whole new course and plan. All right. So, and yeah, just to reiterate, this is so many volunteers. We unfortunately can't have every single person up here, or this opening ceremony would be like 500 hours long. Someone can do the math. But it's a lot of people who have gone in to make this experience, and all of them are volunteering their time because they're care so much about these topics and accessible education. So it's just really a pleasure to be a part of this community. So Nick, want to talk about our supporters?
I do want to talk about our supporters. Is my mic better now?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was a little having some trouble with it. Nice. So there's all sorts of people that help financially support us or support us through materials or other things that they contribute, or even in-kind kind of like goods and contributions. And for each of these people, Neuromatch is really quite selective about the people we end up working with to sponsor us. They want to be organizations that we have some sort of shared element or interest in. And so if you ever want to read more about our connections to each of these, we'll be posting over the next several months, basically little snippets on why we work with this organization, how we interact with them, how our values align for these different groups. But we have all sorts of great supporters from government groups like NASA, to companies like Facebook Reality Labs and Google, to the universities that we work with, who so graciously let people volunteer their time to help make Neuromatch possible. And so a lot of great people that we get to work with.
All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about our course content, because I think sometimes it's easy to forget how much went into the materials you're looking at. So we have some amazing content creators around the world create the content for all of our courses. This is Comp Neuro, Deep Learning, and now Climate. We have volunteers reviewing those materials, checking for copyright issues, because another big thing we do is make all of our materials under this really permissive license called CC BY, which means that if you are an educator or if you want to give a workshop, you can use these materials and we won't sue you because we're giving you permission to use them. So I've used these in my classrooms, and it's just, you know, another way you can keep using these materials after the course is over. We have content creators take that review into account, update their materials, and we have editors edit the materials. Then we do a full dress rehearsal. So every piece of material you've seen has gone through a full dress rehearsal with lots of people looking at the material and doing it as in a standard, you know, Neuromatchy style. They give feedback, and then we do a lot more integrating and editing, and we try and caption all of our videos, translate as many as possible. And then finally, the materials reach you. So we put a lot of effort into making our materials as good as possible. That said, there's always ways to improve, and we get a lot of questions on how you can help improve the materials, so I will address that now. The first is that you can help others understand them. We'll have content help channels in Discord, so especially TAs should be answering questions from others if anyone's confused. And then for the materials themselves, we have a contribution process on our GitHubs for how, if you want to, you know, fix typos, or if you want to fix equations, you can submit an issue about what needs to be fixed. But then the biggest way is to come back and volunteer with us and help us improve our materials. It's all volunteer based. So the more people we have, the better we can make everything. All right, so now we'll have Kevin here to talk about some social events. Right, so to be clear, what I'm about to describe is for the Neuromatch courses, ClimateMatch has their own events set up. So what we have is for the span of the course, you'll be able to submit to various categories for an art contest, such as t-shirt design. We'll go over the categories on the next slide, actually. But essentially, you can submit to all sorts of different categories for an opportunity to, for example, create an emote that future students will be able to use. You'll be shouted out on our socials as well. You'll be mentioned in the closing ceremony. So it's a fun thing that we've had around for a couple of years now, and it's pretty fun. The bot contest is essentially the same thing. I'm sure all of you have had a chance, or most of you have had a chance to interact with the NMA bot by now. For the bot contest, we are asking students to develop their own function for the bot contest. It's written in Python, which is what the course assumes you know. And details for that will be shared in the Discord. The art contest as well. Both of them have their own channel in the Discord. And more details will be posted on announcements throughout. We have a big social event each Saturday of the course. The first Saturday, we're going to have a chess tournament. It'll run throughout the day asynchronously. We will send out a website where you can sign up for it. And if you're signed up for it, you will be sorted into a bracket. It's going to be fun. And then for the second Saturday, we have a film festival. So the way that that'll work is we will send out an announcement where students can vote in different categories, like, let's say, a horror movie. And then for the entire day, we're going to be streaming within Discord some movies that fit that theme. We'll add a couple of emotes as well. It should be fun. And then throughout, we also have AMAs set up. So, for example, Nick at one point will be doing an AMA where you can just ask questions, any questions that you want, so long as they're appropriate. We have, you might have seen if you're in the Discord already, a activity center channel.
From there, you can start different games, like you can play checkers with each other, you can play Scrabble. You are also able to start activities that are not games. Like, for example, if you want to start a study session where you're able to write on a whiteboard and then just take notes and such, you can do that. You want to watch YouTube with each other, that's also possible. I encourage you to check it all out. And so these are the categories for the contest. We have the bot contest. We have a contest to design your pot logo, to create a comic that's related to Neuromatch, pixel art. Some of these categories will have different names depending on whether you're in the computational neuroscience or the deep learning course. But essentially, they're the same thing. We have a music contest. We have a memes contest. If you want to see how good of a prompt engineer you are, we have an AI art contest. So there's lots of different opportunities to get started here.
Yeah, the art contest results are some of the most fun times at Neuromatch for me. Especially, the memes category last year was on fire. So you've got a lot to live up to. So yeah, start brainstorming about some good memes. All right, so ClimateMatch. If you're here for the climate course, you might be feeling left out, but you shouldn't, because Climate is also having an art contest. They are it's renamed the Earth EXPO to emphasize the importance of collaboration in climate science, but it is also still a contest. So you'll get to submit for lots of different categories, including t-shirt design, music, data art and climate science, memes, of course, photography, and chapter images. So one of the unique elements for ClimateMatch is that you'll get to submit art that could be featured in the ClimateMatch materials on each day's worth of content. So we think of that as a chapter, and we need images associated with that. So that's going to be really cool. You can impact their materials in that way as well. All right, and then, you've probably noticed how much we've talked about the necessity of volunteers. And so we encourage you to join us in all sorts of ways, including volunteering. It's really, I can speak personally because I volunteered here for 4 years. It's a lot of fun. But there's other ways to join us, our larger Neuromatch community, beyond just the Academy courses. You might know that Neuromatch Academy is just one branch of our larger umbrella organization of Neuromatch. So we hold conferences, career events, matching and collaboration. There's a lot going on that we'd love to have everyone join us for. And it's a way to build on the connections you make during the course as well. All right, so with that, I am going to stop sharing my slides. Hopefully I do it right. Okay. So we've asked some former students and TAs to join us for a little panel about, their experience and their advice from the student perspective on how to make the most of NMA. You might notice these are familiar faces because, as I keep saying, a lot of our volunteers are former students. But now, instead of talking about their departments, we're going to ask more about their student experience. So maybe we could start with, and I should introduce a new person. Dante is joining us, who is also a volunteer and also a former student. So maybe I'll have each of you start with sort of talking briefly about your, what was your NMA experience? Were you a TA? Were you a student? What course? And so on. So Kevin, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I was actually a student during the very first Neuromatch Academy. Perky Corals was my pod name. And Gunnar, who you met earlier, was actually my mentor. So it was awesome. It was really great. Back then, things were very different. We didn't have a Discord yet. We actually had our own workspace on Slack. It was interesting. You could very much tell that everybody was very excited about this, as this was still new to everyone. Even on the organizer side, it was very much brimming with excitement. That was my experience. I was a student the first year.
All right, Antoine, want to go next?
I think it's better now. So I was a TA at Neuromatch for the first 2 years for computational neuroscience, so 2020 and 2021. So yeah, and from that, like I echo Kevin in that the first year was like so exciting to see everything starting up, and like every year, like the second year was getting all these Discord coming up and a lot of additional things. It's always like so exciting to be here, and whatever the position, I'm always happy to be in the home match.
And Dante, want to go next? Oh, I think you're muted. You should be unmuted now.
Oh, great. I was also a student of the 2020 original edition, computational neuroscience. I was 19 or 20, like just starting my undergrad. And this course was the reason why I got into computational neuroscience in the first place. So it had a big impact. It's my unofficial AstroCAD merge. You'll get to meet AstroCAD in week 3, I think.
Yeah, if you're in the Comp Neuro course, we all love the AstroCAD, and you'll know what that means in 3 weeks. All right, so yeah, I'd love to hear sort of if you had to travel back in time to yourself starting the course, what would you recommend? Like, what would you present you tell past you about how to make the most of your 3 weeks or 2 weeks for climate students? We can just go in the same order, maybe. I don't have to call on people.
So I think the number one recommendation would be to just relax a little bit. It can feel a little bit overwhelming at the start as you are still somewhat uncertain and you realize, oh, there's things I actually need to get done. Like I have this TA that I sort of have to answer to. Just relax. The main thing that Neuromatch is about is just making sure that everybody has a good time. Everybody learns a little something, grows a little bit. And don't let the stress of the novelty of the experience stand in the way of just engaging with it and really letting yourself enjoy it. I would also recommend to new students to check out all the stuff that we have on Discord. Neuromatch, in my experience, has been very much about what you make of it. Like sort of like with any summer school or workshop, the more you engage with it, the more you'll get out of it. There are people that I know through Neuromatch that I work with every day. There are people that I know through Neuromatch that I literally just text anytime that they're in town. And that's just because, you know, I went for it, and so did they, and we had a good time, and it was memorable. So very much engage with the experience, try to have a good time, and don't stress too much.
So I will echo a lot of what Kevin said. So yeah, definitely agree with the fact that you don't have in 3 weeks to understand everything in every single details. And one very good thing about Neuromatch is that all the material will be accessible forever. So even though after 3 years, sometimes I'm like, oh, I have to do this thing, and instead of Googling, I will just like go back to the notebook much because I know that the content is there and you have videos to explain it, and it's kind of a toolbox that I often come back to. Another thing is also like mostly from my TA perspective is don't hesitate to reach out for like question or help. There is a lot of people on Discord that can help. There is like all this structure that you can rely on. You have your lead TA that you can ask question, and even if your question seems silly or like not really important, just ask it and people will be more than happy to help you with that. So you have this community that just want everyone to be at the best and have the best experience of use it.
Yeah, it's hard to add more advice to all of that, but especially so my experience was as someone who was just starting out, so it was very overwhelming. I always like to say it's like drinking water from out of a fire hose. It's just a lot of content, and definitely just ask if you're stuck, both in the actual notebooks and especially in the big projects, because it's easy to get stuck on that. So that's why you're doing stuff in a group, and that's why you have the mentors. And yeah, just ask anytime something doesn't fully click or you don't know what to do next. And also definitely join all of the panels. I found the academic and industry panels very, very helpful. Especially I was like very early on in my program, so that helped a lot.
Thanks all. Yes. I think that like piece of advice of relax. It's hard to keep in mind in the moment, but it is just like you're not going to be an expert in any of these materials. I'm sorry if you expected to be, but you're not going to be an expert after 2 to 3 weeks. But we really want you to give you a foundation upon which you can build later. And like everyone keeps saying, you can come back to materials later. You can do all the bonus content later. We have a lot of extra stuff for you to do. So you really shouldn't feel like you need to get it all during the course. And I would especially just emphasize, stick with it for a few days. Like we have so many people who are like kind of a little bit stressed out the first day. And then by the 3rd day, they're like, oh, this is amazing. I'm so glad I stayed. So give yourself a little time. All right, we've talked a lot about sort of curriculum, but we have this whole other component of the course, which is projects, that I think people tend to have a lot of questions about. So I'm curious for each of you, like, what do you see the role of projects in the course, and sort of what's your advice around those specifically? Like, how do people kind of make the most of their project's time?
Sure. So in my experience, projects, as a student, I was very much intimidated by the project. It's always scary when you're still, somewhat early, you're still learning, and all of a sudden you're put with other people that are also still learning, and also with a mentor who's very experienced, and you're a little bit afraid of like asking a question that reveals that you have some fundamental flaw in the way that you think about this, or a gap in your knowledge. That's fine. That's totally normal. That's what it is like to be in science, to be in a STEM field, and just let go of that and just engage with the project. The project, the way you should be thinking about it is, it's taking everything that you just learned and tinkering with it and trying to create something cool with the people that are in your pod. So that's my experience with that.
Yeah, so something I want to add also for projects. So I've been mentoring projects last year, and one thing that I feel might be frightening is that you might want to absolutely have results by the end of the 3 weeks, but that's not the goal of the project. So if you have this huge data set that you introduce to, and in 3 weeks trying to wrap up results is like pretty much like it's a very big goal that you probably won't be able to succeed, and that's totally okay, because the goal is, as Kevin said, just take this huge data set and whichever method you've used, whichever method you've learned, use it on this data set. And also something that I remember from my very first year as a TA, there was all this initially in the project, the first weeks is about like creating the question, all the thinking process that goes into it. And I think from my personal experience, that's the most I kept out of this project, is that how to formulate a research question and move forward. And that's something I'm still using these days for whichever project I'm working on.
So my recommendation, something that I've had other people say, is keep it simple. Like you're gonna have 3 weeks. When I did it, we lost most of our time because we chose like a giant 10 gigabyte data set of fMRI. No one in our team had worked with fMRI before. We just spent most of the time just trying to open the data. So keep the data simple. You might eventually, like this might eventually lead to a publication if you're very, very lucky. But for this project, you should just think of, oh, I heard you can do this with this type of data and replicate results, or yeah, don't try to have a publication by the end of 3 weeks. Do 1 or 2 little things. Oh,
Yeah.
and make sure it's an idea that like your whole team likes, because that otherwise might cause conflict when it's one person's idea and they want to do it their way. Make sure that there's communication going on there.
Yeah, much like real research, this project is a team effort. So please keep that in mind. You're not, doing your own project on your own. The whole point is to learn how to collaborate with a team of scientists and to do a scientific project. And yeah, I'll echo, the goal is not to get a publication at the end of 3 weeks. So you should, some people do continue working together after the course, and that has resulted in publications, which is completely awesome, but that is not the expectation. So you should really use the time to learn how to do a research project, talk to your mentors and project TAs and regular TAs, and focus more on kind of developing those skills that will be applicable to your next research project where you could publish it. So Nick, I know you're not a prior student or TA, but I'm curious if you have any thoughts, about this, how to make the most of NMA. And I keep saying NMA and CMA. All of this advice is applicable for CLIMATEMATCH as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think there's nothing I can say that hasn't already been said, but I'll reemphasize the main point, which is that you should take advantage of the social aspects of this. This is about learning to learn from others and work together with others, and that social and interactive element of it is the most essential piece. And so sometimes it's going to be scary to ask the question that you have or to state your idea in your small group, but that type of sharing is what leads to the best type of learning.
All right, thank you. So I think with that, we could maybe bring on some CLIMATEMATCH volunteers and just spend a few minutes answering questions. If anyone has them, you should put them in the question and answer section and upvote ones you want to hear the answer to. Thank you all for joining us and giving us your perspective as prior students and TAs. I think a couple of you should stay on, but maybe we can bring in some CLIMATEMATCH volunteers as well, so we get some more representation. So while we're waiting, we can look at some of the questions. So yeah, please ask questions in the Q&A. So the first one is, how many students are there at Neuromatch and CLIMATEMATCH? I should have said that because it really gives a sense of how big we are. We have around 2,500 students overall. So we have about 1,300 in Comp Neuro, 700 in Deep Learning, and about 500 in the Climate course, because that's our newest one. It's not that climate science is less exciting, don't worry. Yeah, so it's just a huge, huge enterprise, and we have hundreds of TAs. All right, we've got some climate volunteers. So I'm curious, because we had a lot of Neuromatch prior students and TAs, and I know that there cannot be prior student and TAs for CLIMATEMATCH because it's the first year, but I'm curious if you have advice that's maybe also tailored for the climate students about how they should make the most of this course and what they should kind of expect to gain from it. Anyone?
I think because Neuromatch and CLIMATEMATCH is such a tight-knit community, we actually have surprisingly many prior students, TAs, and volunteers on our team. So I think we really got to draw on that experience when we designed the content, that people knew what Neuromatch was like because they were TAs in the past. But yeah, what was said before about Neuromatch is very much true about CLIMATEMATCH. We only have 2 weeks. And we're hoping that students will get the most of it. Don't only focus on the content, focus on meeting your teammates, working together on the content, enjoy all of the professional development events. This is about making connections, not only in your own country, not only in your own field, but with experts from all around the world.
Yeah, I think I want to echo what Natalie said, and I think we were talking about project, and the ClimateMatch Academy really has specific contents about the good practices on researching and projects, so that don't be too concerned. And climate and earth science in general has really large like data volumes, so I think the recommendation from earlier students saying don't get too stressed about opening the entire data set, like starting with something small is really good practice overall, and you don't want to get bogged down on those technical sides, but get things practice skills is a further thing. And also the technical team for the ClimateMatch Academy has been really working hard on making those to be computational environment for every student to experience that. And for professional development, I think Rocio is also on the call, and she has been typing in the chat as well. So we really want the students to get the whole experience of talking with professionals through the recorded impact talks, as well as the live career panels. And Rocio has been working with volunteers to highlight some of the career profiles, so you can see a really diverse different career paths. It's not just in academia, it can be in the industry, it can be in nonprofit, it can be a community organizer, all the things that you can see and see yourself that might fit into one of those like job in the future.
I'll just add something brief because I think Natalie and Douglas covered everything. I'll reiterate something Kevin said. Ask questions. You're here to learn. If you don't ask questions, you won't learn. If it's not working, if it's not clear, if that is broken, I don't know, ask. There are many people around. Ask your TAs. If they don't know, they can ask any of the leads in Neuromatch or ClimateMatch. And if they don't know, we can find a solution. So ask. Don't be afraid of asking. Just ask.
Great, thanks everyone. All right, so we've got some questions about sort of next steps. So once a student takes this course at the end of the 2 or 3 weeks, how do they, maybe particularly for the climate course, how do they continue growing? What do they do next?
So one of the things we offer that I'm not sure if Neuromatch is doing is a climate scholars program. So students will have extended access to the computational resources after the course. This will be true for everyone. And then they can continue working on their projects in their project groups or in groups that form differently after the course. And together with that, they can then, at the end of the summer or winter, depending on where you are, submit an abstract to become part of the Climate Scholars Program to get further advice, to get mentoring. We're still working out the details, but we're hoping that will enable us to form groups around the world that work together in a more continuous kind of way. And if that's not your cup of tea, you're always welcome to join us as volunteers. We're very much hoping that this year's students are going to be next year's TAs, and that the students and TAs will join us as volunteers to help improve the content, help improve the social experience. So we're hoping that the course is only going to be the start of your ClimateMatch experience.
And I would say another thing is to suggest what you want to see, because ClimateMatch Academy is very new. And so if you have any specific suggestions how you want to see yourself get engaged or continue to be involved, and what the suggestions you have would really help us to continue involve and engage with the students and TAs in the next 6 to 12 months until the next iteration of the ClimateMatch Academy.
And I'll just chime in from a Neuromatch side. I think a lot of what everyone said applies. We're going to continue to have events. We're trying to build a global community, and we're really focusing on that in the coming years and building an alumni network of our courses. So we're hopeful that there'll be lots of opportunities to plug into this great community and continue practicing your skills, including, developing new courses that might be of interest to you. And I think you're seeing in the chat a lot of volunteers chiming in and former students just saying like how much they've connected with people and how much that's influenced their careers. And so we really hope that happens for a lot of our students. All right, so we've come up on an hour, and I think we've answered the major questions. So I will say, obviously, there's a lot of questions you might have. You should always go to your TA with any questions you have. If they can't answer, and it's for all of the courses. If they can't answer your question,